Hello and welcome back to the One Shot Show where GMs go to level up. Just 15 minutes long so that you can listen to a whole episode during your commute, provided your commute is just 15 minutes long. My name is Matt.
My name is Mark.
And we are joined for this episode by special guest Brad Thompson from Cutting Words.
Hello.
And that is because today's topic is production value. And Brad, who is an award-winning Dungeon Master.
Award-winning Dungeon Master Brad
Thank you
with
for
us
mentioning
in
that.
the studio.
Yeah.
I would say that you are the reasonably appointed king of production value in the local scene, certainly, and globally, in fact, hence the awards. So that's part of bringing you in, is we're keen to talk about, the production value that that we bring to our games as GMs, what it actually delivers for us, and all of that cool stuff. So, I mean, let's get your idea off the cuff. What is production value in your games to you? Like, if I say the word production value, what's immediately coming to your mind?
Production value, wow. There's so many levels to it, So I'm going to start with levels.
20?
Terrain. No, I'll do it, vertical levels. So even combat, like D&D is an obvious example. We got terrain. I got a little example I brought to the studio here of a volcano. We can have different levels.
For those of you listening at home, please visualize the most beautiful model volcano you can possibly imagine.
I understand if you subscribe to your Patreon, you can see the volcano, right?
Oh,
Nice.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
You know what? You can actually see the volcano
Yeah.
if you go to Patreon.
Yeah. So it also lights up, which you definitely can see on camera for sure.
Yeah, that's
I'll put it there.
that's for sure showing up.
Yeah. So there's different production values to do with just terrain and lighting. Where to begin with that? Also, not just lighting on terrain, but also like in my home game, my living room, I have LED lights that can change colour, set the mood as well.
You've got ambient lighting.
Yes.
You've got props. You've got props that light up, combining the lighting and the props.
Oh, actually, props is a different category. This is terrain. The props are like things like you pull out like a ring of keys, like you find keys, here you give them the prop to the player. That sort of thing.
We're on a whole other
Yeah,
level.
that's a whole different thing.
I mean, this is already like when I think production value, and I brought a prop too as well.
Okay.
Brad. I mean,
I will
genuinely,
describe for people listening at home who don't go to Patreon what this looks like.
Truly, this is the upper limit of production value. If I bring one of these bad boys to a session, that's high effort. I'll get digital download maps that I'll print out.
Yeah.
For like $15 at a warehouse stationery nearby, and like. If my campaigns get bedded in enough and a character, hasn't died yet, they'll get a miniature printed, which is $10 for the STL file, $5 for 3D printing materials if you know a guy. Like, that's the limit of production value for me. You're already starting above that. You're like, the map and the miniatures, that's a given. Now, light up terrain.
Okay, now, for those listening without having access to the videos on our Patreon, Matt just pulled out a printout map of a temple, and Brad's volcano makes it look like shit. Please continue.
A lot of the terrain I got, including this volcano, is Dwarven Forge, which dwarvenforge.com, you can get that terrain there. It's pricey. It's not I would not recommend getting that on a budget. It's a slippery slope to spend a lot of money on terrain.
I have been to your house several times.
Did he know
and
at the time?
every time he was aware.
Okay, good.
You have an enormous collection of these, of the terrain, of the props, of the minis.
Yes.
Just completely insane. I've borrowed some of your props. In fact, you loan your props out to other people's games at other people's shows constantly.
Yeah, the kindness of my heart. And the shout outs. Cutting Words, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe to Cutting Words. We can't recommend Dwarven Forge, though. Very expensive.
Yeah,
It's very expensive.
and actually, that's I think the first thing that I'm keen to bring up because I pulled out my rinky-dink idea of production value, and I mentioned that like that's maybe $15, and like that map, that does me for a session or like maybe two, depending on how big the set piece is, if it's a dungeon crawl or something. And I mean, cost is a barrier, right? When it comes to production value, Dwarven Forge is a classic example, but even going, even things like having a nice table, having the LEDs set up in your house, like, it's a one-off cost, but there's still a significant cost involved, obviously. So I guess the question I'm really interested in, obviously to you, the cost is worth it. But at what point would it stop being worth it to you?
Oh, like I just stopped using the train altogether and just kind of sat there gathering dust. That'd be very sad, wouldn't it?
What does it add to your games?
Well, it's my game. Oof. or different aspects add different elements, I guess you could say. For the terrain, add a lot to the combat, because suddenly you got like, more layers to figure out, moving miniatures around. It's kind of a miniature game, But you don't necessarily need that for like an intense role-playing session. The terrain normally sits off to the side, being a sad gathering dust for those sessions, but it's okay. We all enjoy role-play, we'll enjoy all the aspects of the game. For that, it might be more macro music, set the mood. That's a very cheap way of setting the mood and adding to the game just by placing music on the back.
Bring a speaker, put something on. YouTube has immense amounts of just background ambient sounds. There's also tabletop audio, which I use constantly, which you can go and support them on Patreon. And I think you should, because they add a lot of value to my games, and you can use them for free.
I'll also do a shout out to Sirenscape.
Yes.
Syrin, Scape spelt the normal way. And you know how I do music in my games? Truly, a regular player of mine is also a professional GM, and he does the music. I've outsourced it to a player of mine, and he's really onto it because he's already got his tablet out with his character sheet and everything. While I'm busy describing something, it's very easy for him to just tap a couple of things and change the music to suit.
Brad, I've got a question.
Oh, yes.
Let's say that you can only bring like one thing to a game. What is the piece of production value, be it the lights or the music or the props, that you would have to bring if you were washed up on a desert island and you had to run D&D for somebody? You had one suitcase and it could only hold one set of things.
Oh my gosh.
What is it?
I'm going to pick one thing.
One set of things.
One set of things.
One level of things.
Okay. I'd go with the miniatures.
Ooh.
Okay.
Especially a boss fight, something you pull a big fancy miniature. Like you can get away with just having like board and pen to train things. Sometimes even still do that. Sometimes
Stick
just
in
on
the sand
fly.
on the beach of the desert.
Yeah. You
wash
whack
up
down,
on.
on the desert island. And whack a big dragon out or something like that. Like whoa, see all that.
Interesting.
That does help with immersion. I know that particularly when I am playing, I will often design my own miniature on Hero Forge or even sculpt them myself, which I've done before. And that just really helps you feel connected to the person just getting wailed on by the dragon that you pulled out on this desert island beach.
Yeah.
Matt, what about you? Are you the same answer?
You're going to love my answer. If there's one piece of production value that I'm going to prioritize bringing, it's myself. And we've talked a little bit about this before, right? Back when we were talking about paid GMing, which I believe is something we've all done, we've all dabbled in a little bit. I am of the opinion that the product is first and foremost me. The production value can accentuate on top of that. So and this isn't to say that you haven't done the same thing, mind you, but where you put quite a lot of effort into your production value, I would say I have put a similar amount of effort into how I run the games I run and the level of depth and detail that I'm willing to go into with them. So not necessarily that it's an either-or sort of thing, but the big reason I've done that is I'm not operating on a budget that can afford Dwarven Forge terrain all the time. Like, even something like the map, the reason why I take the $15 printing option is it's just heavy enough duty paper that it's not going to absolutely fall apart, but I'm probably never going to use this a second time. That is one particular location for one set piece in one session in one campaign. I am unlikely to get repeat use, so I want to keep my costs low, and improving myself is the cheapest thing I can do.
So you say you fit in a suitcase?
Yeah, I reckon.
Okay.
That's like a big one.
Okay.
Like a proper antler, Samsonite, American
Right.
Tourister kind of deal. It's like the Cadillac of suitcases. I don't know if you guys know much about luggage brands.
We are now diverting into a discussion on luggage brands. You're making a really, really good point about the Dungeon Master themselves bringing an enormous amount. And honestly, playing on the sand on a deserted island with absolutely nothing with an incredible Dungeon Master is going to beat any day having someone who doesn't really know what they're doing, doesn't really know how to engage, if they've got every single piece of Dwarven Forge that has ever been made. I mean, you are an award-winning Dungeon Master.
That's correct.
And that is production value in itself, just like having you there. And I've been on television.
I've also been on television, bro. It's not that big a deal. This is New Zealand. Everyone's been on television.
I've actually been on television too, so
Yeah.
I don't want to steal Mock's thing. So,
But having a DM who's able to, I would say that a couple of things that a DM can bring are like doing the character voices or being able to improvise really, really quickly and in a really engaging manner. And those are skills that do take a lot of practice that you do have to work on and are built up over time. Opinions? Thoughts?
Well, I actually think there's an interesting thing that's bubbling under the surface here in that when we're talking about production value in the context of the self and what you bring to the table, evidently we all have had a bit of background in parts of media that means we've probably worked with our voices a lot more than your average Joe has.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. It also means that, we've spent a lot more time around creative industries than other people might. So we're spending a lot more time with stories on average than somebody who maybe has, an hour to read a book after work, after they've put the kids to bed and all of that jazz. So that actually does help a lot. So when we talk about, what's the lowest barrier to entry thing, at the same time, not everyone has that kind of background where they're sort of picking up a lot of these useful skills naturally as they go through life. They might not have the time to get as in depth into stories and spend as much time thinking about them as we might. So actually, to that person who maybe is, money rich but time poor, and all they've got in terms of free time is spent on their 4-hour session of D&D every week or fortnight, spending hundreds of dollars on Dwarven Forge terrain probably is the smartest thing they can do to increase their production value.
I've got a question. What does production value actually bring to the game? Why would you drop hundreds of dollars on maps and light up volcanoes?
Why not? It's fun.
Which is a valid answer.
Thank you. That's it.
That's it? Oh, no. I have more I get there. For one, I do help. If I help sort of prep, actually, I can just go start building. Actually, the adventure card forms itself from the terrain bits I have. Right to what you got. So you have to buy every single Dwarven Forge piece.
Right what you've got. I like that.
Yeah. And I find it very inspiring there, just building. Oh, actually, I've got some kobolds here. Yeah, that's a kobold
So it's not
volcano
just a
dungeon.
tool for the players to get really invested and involved in the world. It's also
helps with prep and dungeon mastering, prepping inspired for the story and go, actually, yeah, it's called Dragon Mini. Yeah, actually, yes. What eventually do with this Dragon Mini?
Yes, no, I agree. I had a beautiful aquarium piece, which was a massive mountain with a bunch of skulls on it. And that would show up every second week at my table for about 2 months. I spent $25 on that, and I was going to get my money's worth.
Yeah. There are budget options as well. Like, I use aquarium pieces sometimes as well. Like, I think for one of your shows, I loaned you a pyramid for a pyramid scheme.
Yes, you did.
I've got 2 quick things here because in a weird way I do the same. Like even on my low budget version, I can't draw maps. I have to get them from somewhere. I've got a couple of different people I back on Patreon and places I know where I can get relatively cheap art. But I've still just got to scroll through and work with what's there. And I'll be looking at it and go, you know what? The look of that temple actually works quite well for this thing that I'm trying to do. The other question that I was going to throw to you, I've completely forgotten, which isn't very helpful.
No.
You know what? You talk about something. I'll see if it comes back
you're
to
talking
me.
about maps. Listen, you want me to make you some digital maps? I can do it. I run a lot of games online, and production value online is very different from production value in person. Production value online will look like often playing music in the background, which we talked about, but also the maps, I will custom make them digitally using Incarnate. Shout out to Incarnate.
Yeah,
fantastic,
great tool. Yep.
fantastic program.
Yeah, I use Incarnate exactly once at the start of my campaigns when I make a world map, and that's about it. I'm a little bit anti-region map as well, by the way, which we can get into another episode. But that's a particularly spicy take of mine.
Brad, what is your favorite piece of terrain or mini that you've ever used?
Favorite piece of terrain?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And you can't say the light up volcano. We've seen that. That's old news.
That's old news.
Take it off the table. It's done.
Oh, fine. It's off.
For those listening and unable to watch, which you can on Patreon, Brad has just removed the incredibly beautiful light up volcano from the table.
It's gone. I always harken back to my first piece of terrain, which was actually before Dwarven Forge. It was homemade, kind of like little clay bricks stuck together and things like that. And it was just like a little dungeon kind of with like a raised platform at the back, a little stairwell to go around to it. And basically the kind of was there's a wizard on a platform, so you can't just run up to him. He's like, just shooting lightning at them.
Introducing some verticality to the battlefield.
Just some basic blocks and the players that run across the room, get up the stairs to get to the guy. He's just on a platform, and then you can options you can push him off.
That's a fantastic
or do whatever.
thing that physical props can absolutely add. Your battlefields become immediately so much more interesting.
I was going to echo the exact same thing in that, often it's a problem that people struggle with, actually, is how do I make my combats more interesting? Well, as soon as you've got the stuff in place, suddenly, look, there is an actual building there. You can imagine a building, but it's easier to do it when you've got the prop there. I guess a question hold that thought. The question that I want to throw to you, because I've remembered it from earlier.
Here we go.
So we've talked a lot about, look, I bought this piece, I try and get maximum use out of it, so on and so on and so on. Over the course of running, a regular game every single week, do you ever feel like you're hitting a point where you're like, the players are said, they're like, oh, it's the volcano again. Like, how do you go about
it's
getting...
the Skull Mountain.
Yeah, like
what a surprise.
How are you actually going about reusing these pieces such that it doesn't feel like you're recycling them?
Oh. You assume I use pieces that often. I bought it, use it once or twice, and it goes on the shelf. I don't recycle that often. I don't think we've hit that point yet. But you can do different combinations of terrain pieces that come together, come off very different feel, different setup. So I don't think I've reached that point yet, but who knows? I might reach that point at some point. Just buy more terrain to keep adding more life to it, more variety. There you go.
That's
just keep buying more. Yeah.
That's useful to know.
Just buy more.
Yeah, buy more.
Just buy more.
Never stops.
But something I was going to say before, when you were saying...
Before I rudely interrupted.
Before you very rudely interrupted me, honestly. You were talking about your players not having to really imagine things. You put the volcano down there in front of them. And something that I've found very useful, if I was washed up on this hypothetical island, opposite side of the island...
I thought you meant like in life.
In life. If I was washed up and I could bring one thing, the one thing that I bring to every game, no matter what, is a little portable monitor for my laptop. And you can pick up one of these for like $100. And what I do is I put that extra monitor in front of the players, and anytime they meet a creature, I can just look up some artwork, put it in front of them. If they're going to a location, I'll look up beautiful fantasy jungle and put it in front of them. And even if all you've got for the rest of your production value happens to be everyone's got their own bottle cap for their characters and a whiteboard that you've scribbled on for a map, if you can show them the NPC that they are talking to, that makes a huge world of difference.
Yeah, I do similar things sometimes with like initiative markers, but with the artwork printed out, so put it on the top of the DM screen so they can see the NPC, their initiative, or if it's a social encounter like a murder mystery, here's all the different suspects, and where it's room they're in by moving them around. Yeah.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
I really like that.
In a weird way, as is usual, I feel like we've suddenly hit a point where we've realized there's so much more we could talk about. We've gone through so much detail, and then we feel like we've only scratched the surface because we've talked a lot about things like maps and miniatures and all that sort of stuff, and we haven't actually gone into some of the real neat specific tricks you can use depending on the systems you're running or the kind of game you're running, or if it's a one-shot versus a long-form campaign, which is my funny way of saying we're going to have to pick that up in another episode. This has been this episode of the One Shot Show. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.